it was honestly like the whole experience of going through my refinancing for the first time was like, it was just so powerful because up until that point I never really seen like, I understood all my properties like building equity and stuff, but I've never really taken from them. And I'm a very like, I don't really touch the money that much. I just buy what I need when I need it, or if I want to take a vacation, sure. And so to see those like six figures, it was like, wow, like that is how powerful property is. Not only are you building equity and wealth, but you have tax advantages. There's cash flow. You can refinance it again. Like it's just crazy.
I can't believe that we actually met on a Clubhouse, Laura. I mean, you and I have been doing Clubhouses for what is it now?
2 months,
2 months or something
maybe
like
over,
that.
yeah.
Friday night, I'm about to sign off on Clubhouse. Okay, it's like I don't know, 10 o'clock or 9:30 or something like that. Vanessa will let me know. And I've been in that room now for about 45 minutes. You know me, I go off on my tangents. I'm speaking and we're modding and having a blast.
Before you know it, it's one big soliloquy for Jazz.
No, no. Even the Jazz Tack, our podcast, doesn't allow me to do soliloquies because you're always
someone else has to speak.
Okay. So around 9:30, and then I'm looking at who's still on the audience. Okay, like who's in the audience, and I click on our guest picture, Vanessa's picture, and then her bio says Toronto investor, and I don't remember exactly what's in there, but I was like, you know what, I'm gonna just wait because she's up next. Like, who knows? There could be a connection. Not thinking like that much into it, right? She comes on, I hear her voice. She starts talking about how she's invested into real estate. Again, I noticed Toronto because this is a lot of American people on the app, right? And she went on a soliloquy for whatever it was, 4 or 5 minutes, and I said right away, I was like, sorry to cut you off, but I need to have you on the podcast to tell your story.
You know what? I know, Vanessa, obviously we're going to go into your story, so I don't want Jazz to steal it all from you. But essentially, Jazz came in, 2 days later after he met you on Clubhouse? On Monday morning, yeah. You're like, you got to see, like, you wouldn't believe this girl that I just met on Clubhouse. So it's crazy how people are meeting, connecting, and we're so excited, Vanessa, to have you. So thank you for joining us.
Well, welcome to the podcast. How are you doing, Vanessa?
Hey guys, how's it going? I am actually so excited to be here. This is actually my very first podcast. So thank you, Jazz and Laura, for having me. And yes, Clubhouse is an extraordinary app, really. I was on there for 3 or 4 days. I think I have my party hat still on. And it's crazy how quickly it connects you to people. And what a coincidence that we're both from Toronto, Canada as well.
Well, Laura's born and raised in Brampton, moved to Toronto. I'm born and raised in Toronto, moved to Brampton. So it's interesting the dynamic in that sense. But for anybody who's listening or watching, when Vanessa mentions party hat on Clubhouse, what that is that if you're new to Clubhouse for the first 7 days, you have this little party hat. Laura, you actually say that it's not a party hat. What do you always?
Yeah, I feel like it's like, when like
a streamer blower or whatever.
And then the stuff is all popping out. Because if it was a party hat, to me, it would be the other way. Yeah. So I'm like, guys, hello, like Clubhouse, it's not a party hat.
Yeah. But it's cool because it lets you know that whoever has that, let's call it a thingamajigger, has that is new to Clubhouse, which also allows the person who has it to make a lot of mistakes.
Yeah. It lets everyone know that we get that you're not necessarily sure how to use the app or what you're supposed to be doing. It also allows people to like reach out to you and say like, come on in this room and come speak, because a lot of people are nervous especially at the start, to put their hand up in some of those rooms. There could be a lot of people and they're not used to speaking in front of large groups. Yeah. So Vanessa, kudos to you for actually like having the balls to go up and speak on your first week.
Did you find it easier in that sense, Vanessa? Because we're massive content creators here. We try to get to 20 to 23 pieces a day on all the platforms. And so I'm always trying to find out from people how they can make it easier on themselves. And that's a question we get a lot. Like Laura, you were not comfortable in front of a camera at the start. And then over time, you started to build that callus up, for a lack of a better word. Did you find it easier, Vanessa, because it was audio only?
Well, you know what? When I jumped into the conversations, I was actually a little bit nervous, but I decided to take the leap because I realized that in this room, because you get to choose what type of room you're joining. It's just a room filled with a bunch of individuals who want to grow and want to learn and are under the same topic, like real estate that you're in. And so I was just like in the audience at first, very compelled by the stories that you guys were saying, like both you and Jazz and a lot of the other individuals I met. And I decided to just join in on the conversation. And it was definitely a lot easier than I thought to actually speak, and just having the feedback and just engaging in a natural conversation kind of like this really allowed me to feel comfortable. So
Isn't
Clubhouse was
it?
awesome. And
Isn't it funny? Like, I love what you said. I caught on to that. Hopefully, the listeners did that. It was a lot easier than you thought. How many times, Lord, do you say like, "Oh my God, I think I made it a lot bigger in my head"?
Every
Or
time.
you always,
Every time we even still film this podcast to this day, I'm like, oh my God, we have a podcast today. Oh my God, I got to do my makeup before I come to work. And oh, I got to make sure my hair is washed and everything. And
or those conversations you have. Like me personally, I have a lot of conversations with people in the shower
Like
that are not real.
Yeah.
They're in my head.
Yeah, and I'm always thinking, like, what am I going to ask? What am I going to say? And then as soon as you sit down and you're face to face with someone who's great, and you just start talking, you realize, I don't even know why I make this such a big deal every single week. I go through this angst, but I'm super happy I do it. Vanessa, I'm super happy you did it. And so let's go back to the beginning. What was it, Jazz or Vanessa, that like kind of sparked your interest in each other? I hear, Vanessa, you shared quite a compelling story about investing in real estate.
Yeah, like,
yes.
go ahead, Vanessa. Go ahead. Go.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I remember being in the discussion, and yeah, I think they were asking us to introduce yourself. Usually, once you are on Clubhouse and you join in on the conversation before you start answering whatever question or joining in on the discussion, you just do a little introduction of yourself. And from there, I think me and Jazz, like, we immediately had that connection because we're both in the real estate field, and we're both from, like, we were both in the same city at one point. And so from there, we kind of engaged in a conversation. And basically, how I introduced myself was I'm from Canada. And that was really awesome because, like Jazz mentioned, there are a lot of people from the US on the app. And the room we weren't in wasn't necessarily catered to Canadians. So it was just awesome. And I am actually a real estate investor in Toronto, Canada. I specialize and invest in multifamily unit apartments. And I was on there just to network and to share my story. And yeah, came across you guys.
Yeah, like yeah, because you said that you're in Toronto. Like we right now are at Don Mills and Lawrence. So, and I know where you are. We're literally 15 minutes away from each other. In a couple of years from now, people might ask the question like, "What the heck? Why aren't you doing it live?" Well, back in 2020/2021, there was a little pandemic that came around,
Something
and
called coronavirus.
And
then
if
COVID.
especially if you're listening 20 years, 2040 right now. Hence why we had to do it digitally. But Laura, because you asked the question like what attracted you to Vanessa and her story. I mean, when she just started, because it's audio only, because we have a podcast, I'm like, my ears are always burning when I listen to someone, right? Because that's what we do. We have an audio only podcast, and that app on Clubhouse. You get to really see how people articulate themselves, because when you have video, moving your hands around, there's a lot of distractions, right? When it's an audio only app, you're really listening. And so if you have an iPhone at the time of this recording, send us in the comments wherever you're watching this, or DM Laura Stewart TO, Jazz Tackar 13, as well as Vanessa's handles are here somewhere in the description. On Instagram, we'll give you an invite.
I got lots of invites.
They just dropped me with another 20 invites.
Yeah, exactly. Literally, they're really trying to expand the platform. And so right now it's invite only. I assume I don't know when, maybe within the next year, you might no longer need an invite. But as of right now, you need an invite.
Yeah. And it might open up to Androids and other platforms.
Exactly. But I appreciate you kind of like, keeping your ears open for potential guests, because Vanessa, it's so often we talk about on this show how difficult it's been for us to get a lot of females to come on board. A lot of times they're nervous about the camera and they feel they have to put in a lot of extra work. And so I really appreciate you taking the time to go from an audio only platform to join us here. I think Jazz, correct me if I'm wrong, what struck him so like so interesting about you was your age and the fact that you had all these doors, right? So tell us a little, what's the number of doors you currently have in your real estate portfolio?
So I currently have 28 rental units, so
Well,
28
I'm
doors.
glad that you said 20. Sorry, Vanessa. I'm glad that you said 28 because I'm literally putting up a story right now and I'm just writing 26 years old and I left it blank just to confirm. So it was 28 doors. Continue.
Awesome. Yes, so I currently have 28 doors spread out among 7 rental properties. And yeah, so I think what you mentioned about being a woman and getting women on here, and that was a really big, one of my big reasons why I wanted to, before I got started in real estate, what I was really looking for a vehicle to try and get me to my dreams and my bigger goals and what I really wanted to achieve wealth for. And I come from a family where we grew up very like low class immigrants that came from Canada. And so my dad, he's from Sri Lanka, and my mom, she's from the Philippines. And we all grew up in this one house just to support each other. My mom had 2 sisters. There was about 15 people in one house. And originally how it was like was the men were the ones that took care of the finances. And then the women were the ones that kind of worked minimum wage jobs here and there when they can. And I really wanted to break that I just really wanted to break that and overcome the idea of what women have been in our family. And so, yeah, I decided I went to a seminar. I got introduced to real estate, and I spent the last couple years before getting involved in real estate working on my mindset and my ideas of wealth and money and what it really means to me, and how it's really not about the money itself. It's what it can do and the freedom of time and the way it can serve other people. And so now I am in real estate, and a lot of people ask me, like, 26-year-old, how were you able to like
Well,
even
hang on.
close your first property or anything like that?
Hang on one sec, Vanessa, because there's so much to unpack there, and I know we have some time, so I really want to take this slow because I know that's what most people are waiting to hear, and I know that's one of the main reasons. Lord, like the second I came into the room on Monday and said, 26 years old, 28 doors, the first thing that Laura said was, "Wow, let's get her
Yeah.
on." Like that was,
How'd she do that?
you know
But
what I'm saying?
I think it's so important, Vanessa, that you touched on the mindset first. You're speaking our language, because if you don't have that right, if you don't have your fundamental why, like
Yeah.
why you're doing anything in life, if that's not strong enough, no matter what, you're going to hit roadblocks in life, right? And so if your why's not strong enough, you're going to get pushed around a little bit, and then you're going to fall flat of your goals because the why wasn't strong enough. So just getting money for the sake of getting money, isn't a strong enough why for most people. And so I appreciate you bringing that point to
Well,
light.
I mean, and Vanessa mentioned it, right? So she said that her why was to change the trajectory of how women in her family were were looked at and how they were looked at. Kind of reminds me a little bit of your story, right? Like where your why. Well, my husband is not going to be the only breadwinner in this household.
Yeah, I mean, I
right?
could have taken a very easy back seat for sure, but I had my own ambitions and dreams, and I equally want to be a part of all decision making when it comes to finances in my household. And so I wanted to bring something to the table myself.
And you have to go educate yourself about finances before you could actually speak at the table, right? Which is right, like which is I think normal for people. Continue.
Yeah, and I think a lot of women who are necessarily they're at home, perhaps, maybe they've quit a career because they've had children. They find themselves in this situation where they're not necessarily bringing the money to the table, and so they feel that they're not, their voice isn't necessarily as important because he or she who brings the money tends to make the decisions about the money. And so I just always wanted to make sure that that was not going to be my situation. I think at your age, this is going to serve you very, very well into your future. Can I just get started on some of these questions? Like, how did you make the first decision? So we've got our mindset right. We've got our why. You started learning about investing in real estate, and then you decided to take the plunge, so to speak. Why did you start with multifam? Most people would think I'm going to start with like a single property. where you went like all in. Tell us about that.
So basically, what had happened was originally I thought that I would go to school and like get an education and kind of follow that societal direction into wealth and having a sustainable life, financial security. And that was only because I never really had the proper role models to look at to show me what was truly possible. And so when I was 12, my dad, he's been super instrumental in just my growth in the real estate world as well as within myself. He brought me to the seminar, and at that time, he worked like 20 years in a factory job. And it was in Toronto. It was called Millionaire Mind Intensive. And at the time, it was by T. Harv Eker. And I was
Mhm.
12 years old. And at that at that seminar, it really just like flipped this switch in my mind, and I'm just like, wow, people in this room really believe that they can attain anything they want. Like, is that really possible? And so that was
I
my
love that. I love that. Like that is so cool that at 12 years old, that's what
Yeah,
stuck
kudos
with
to
you. Like,
dad for
yeah, I
bringing
mean,
you.
big shout out to dad. Big shout out to dad because for him, A, to bring you, and then obviously, as you mentioned, to continue supporting you. So go on. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah, so it was a phenomenal experience, and they would get us into like these groups, and I would be about around a bunch of adults. So at the time, like it wasn't as common for parents to bring their kids to seminars, and so I was really forced out of my comfort zone. My dad's like, "Okay, have fun," because he was also trying to like break out of this class and get our family to another position, and he just brought his daughter to join him. And so it was an incredible seminar, a lot of different mindset things I learned or was just being introduced to. And I came home that night and I was like, wow, like, can you really decide that you don't have to be a victim of your circumstances? Can you really change that? um and so from there, like throughout the rest of like elementary school and high school, I kept trying to tap into that self-development world and really getting in touch with what it means to maximize my potential and kind of like, am I capable of really making an impact? And so it started with what my dreams were. So being able to be that woman that in the family that can be respected not by just all the men. I remember being in a room with like my uncles and my brother, and I could barely get a word in, and like I wanted to be like, almost like a boss and a woman of minority as well. But most importantly, like I had this vision about how I wanted to start my own nonprofit organization for kids that have autism and like for kids that are addicted to substances, different things I've seen or have experienced in my family that causes I wanted to support. And then just to be able to give back to my mom, like she's worked so hard all her life. And while she's still here and on this planet, I want to not only make her proud, but give her a lifestyle I feel like she deserves to experience. And so it started with that and understanding, okay, what is my vehicle to get there? And then at a seminar, they introduced the idea of real estate and multifamily. And I'm just like, you know what? Like, I love this world. I love the people in this world. I love how everyone in this world believes that they have big goals. It's not like I want to close one deal or two deal. I want to close 1,000 doors, if even. And just the whole like natural high I got from being in an environment of just investors and property investors, it's like, you know what? I think that this is what I want to do. And I can't wait. I remember looking at the stage at these big speakers and just being in the audience, shaking hands with all these people. And I just felt like, you know what, right now, I'm like nobody to these people because I have no experience and I have no properties, but I can see it already. I can see myself on stage. I can see myself being in this audience again, maybe a couple years from now, shaking everyone's hands and being like, hi, like my name is Vanessa. I am a multi-family investor in Canada, and I currently own 100 units, and I would love to partner with you. Like I almost like was so inspired by the people that I
Well,
almost
you were putting out the intention out there, right? Like you were putting out the intention, and you mentioned it at the start. This is your first podcast. This is going to be the first of a hundred
I feel like Vanessa's
thousand.
gonna have her own
A
podcast.
100% Vanessa's gonna have, I mean, you need to. I mean, I love the positivity with V as your handle on Instagram, first and foremost. Because you're putting it out there, right? And so for anybody who's listening, I like what you said about investor groups, right? Because I say this a lot that for me, the best type of networking that someone can do is with real estate investors. Why? Because they are a breed on their own. What do I mean by that? Well, because majority of, and I'm talking like 99% of real estate investors will always want to go and tell their own story. They always want to tell you, I got 8 properties, 28 doors, 68 doors, of 6,800 doors. But what I've have found over 16 years of being in network real estate investment groups, as well as like other networking groups, real estate investors, they also tell you the failures that they had because they don't want you to hit your head against the wall. Like, I don't know where it comes from. It's almost like they think back to like getting their first property, getting their 6th property, the trials and tribulations that they had to go through, that they don't want you to have to go through that. And, sometimes I find in like business networking, it's not the same. It's almost like, I kind of want to hold.
They're trying to take.
I want to kind of hold my secrets close to my chest. Whereas real estate investors like, can I talk? Can I talk?
Yeah, it's like everyone wants to be that parent, right? That's like, I've been through everything. If you just do as I say, trust me, you're gonna fare a lot better than I did.
And talk to my mortgage guy, talk to my real estate lawyer, talk to my accountant, and so if you're listening and you're not part of, now, especially in the digital world, you can be part of groups that are free. Introduce yourself. That was the first part that I really stuck with me, Vanessa. The second part is like the how you put the vision out there and how much you rehearsed exactly how you're going to introduce yourself, hi, my name is Vanessa and I have this many properties. And now look,
it's like a vision board in her mind.
It's a vision board in your mind.
Like most people will say you need a vision board. And like for a lot of people, I think it works to have something tangible, right? But Vanessa, from the sounds of it, you just had such clarity in your mind of what it is that you wanted to attract in your life. And now here we are, not long after that you've attained all these things. You're going to have to create a new vision board.
Well, now let's talk about the first property. And that's how we like to kind of take it back, because there's someone who's listening who saw the title of this episode, this video, and said, whoa. How did she get to 28 doors at 26 years of age? So look, in Ontario, the age of majority is 18. Why am I mentioning that? Because at 18 years old, you can buy your first property. See, it's not, and I'm kind of going back a little bit into the start of our conversation. It's never how. To me, it's what do you want? I want 28 doors. I want 1,000 doors. And why do you want it? Because as Laura mentioned as well, like, you're going to come across some obstacles and get punched in the face and punched in the stomach. You better have a strong enough why that you're going to be able to get up. What I also come across, like business owners, salespeople, real estate investors, is that, see, you don't need to have all the information. You don't need to have all the resources. You don't need to have the right people in place. Your why needs to be strong enough at the highest level, because then you'll go get the resources. You'll get the right people. You'll figure out the how. Like, if you know that you want to get 1,000 properties, you want to run a business, you want to become VP of an organization, you want to become, you want to be on Entrepreneur Magazine. Like, that's the cover. That's on Laura's vision board. If the why is strong enough, you're always going to figure out how to speak French if that's what you need to do to become the Prime Minister of Canada. You're like, you know what I mean? Like, you'll always figure out all the micro stuff that is needed and the right people. So your first property, Vanessa, talk to us. How did you obtain? What is it? First of all, what was it? I apologize. And how did you obtain it?
Yes. So my very first property was a duplex. And I actually attained my first property through raising funds, starting with my family and friends. And so that's how I was able to fund my first property. And I just wanted to add to what you said real quickly before I talk about how I was able to close my first deal. About like joining these networks and these real estate groups. And I think one of the most important things I've learned along my journey so far, and I just want to put it out to everyone out there, I am just getting started. I am not a big shot real estate investor. I only have 28 doors, and I have a bigger vision and bigger goals. And so I'm still learning from everyone around me. And I definitely don't know everything, but something that was really important is you are not going to get wealthy by yourself. No one gets rich or wealthy by themselves, and it's not necessarily about the money. And so being able to raise capital was a big one, and understanding the concept of joint ventures. So I met someone that gave me this book. It's called the $5 Million Book. And I was first introduced to joint ventures while I was in university. And they said this thing that stuck with me. And it was, would you rather have 100% of a grape or 50% of a watermelon? And I was like, oh my gosh, that makes so much sense. In order for me to, like, especially coming from a background where I didn't have the financial resources, I'm going to have to partner up, and I'm going to have to learn how to raise capital and learn these creative investment strategies. And so taking it back to my first deal, I started with family and friends. So in my family, I was able to, so I bought a duplex. I started up in Sudbury, Ontario, which was
what took you there? Like, what took you to Sudbury?
So what took me to Sudbury was when I talked about the Millionaire Mind seminar, and me and my dad going together, and he wanted to get involved in real estate as well. We started automatically talking to investors that were there because there was people everywhere. And there was a people that stuck there that said they started in Sudbury, and it was a good market because it was the housing prices were a lot cheaper than if you were to start in Toronto. And so just from meeting genuine people at like a networking seminar, you know what, let's just look into that market and see what's available. And so we started in Sudbury through like recommendations from people that we heard.
Well,
Yeah.
I love that didn't scare you or dad in terms of, well, you lived in Toronto. Did you live in Toronto at that time?
So at that time I was in Toronto, and then eventually we moved out to Barrie.
Okay, got it. So,
Yeah, because we hear a lot of people, right? They say, well, I just want to invest where I know. And we do recommend that for the majority of people, just because it gives them a sense of ease. And if that's going to be the one thing that holds them back, it's like, okay, well, invest in your backyard. You can go check on the property, whatnot. But a lot of times, and like you said, if you're from Toronto prices are quite expensive. And if that's going to be the hurdle that you got to get over, then let's think of other creative ways. Maybe we could do joint ventures in Toronto, or maybe we can, look elsewhere and do
broaden
joint
the
ventures
area.
in other areas.
Right. As you mentioned, Laura, broaden the area. I mean, there's so much there to unpack that you said, right? Like, it might be different strategies in general. Because, Laura, your first property, you decided to do a new build. Why? Because, I mean, you didn't want to deal with the
I'm
tenants
lazy.
and toilets right now.
Yeah.
You're like, give me some time.
Yeah.
Let me, and I get to put my down payment of 20% as an investor over.
Yeah.
years.
And a lot of
That's
people,
probably what got
the
you to
work
pull
is
the
what
trigger.
scares them the most, right? It's like, oh, you hear all these horror stories about tenants. Then some people say, oh, no, you hear all these horror stories about pre-construction. And so it's like, whatever is the thing that's holding you back, fine. Table
Shelf
that.
it.
Don't do it. Shelf it.
Yeah.
We'll talk about it another time. But what can we do? What
Yeah.
doesn't scare you, right?
Exactly.
And so I like that you kind of got creative and figured out a way.
Just taking that first step. I mean, we speak about Dr. Martin Luther King all the time with it, like, it's probably my top 3 quote that I try to live by. Like, you don't need to see the whole staircase. You just need to see the first step, because over time it'll start to unfold, right? For our out of town and out of province and out of country listeners, the reason we're emphasizing this town called Sudbury, because from Toronto it's about a 4-hour drive approximately. And so to what Laura's point was, yeah, I mean, investing in your backyard is great. I personally, all my properties are in the GTA, which is a 50 miles, 75-kilometer radius, because it makes me sleep well at night. I just like it, and that's just me. That doesn't make it right. It just makes it comfortable for jazz. But what we say a lot about when it comes to investing is truly invest where the returns are best, and that's exactly what you did, Vanessa. So I love that you didn't allow that to stop you. And the question I had, when you invested in Sudbury, were you in Barrie or were you in Toronto?
So when I invested in Sudbury, I was in Barrie.
Perfect. So from Barrie, it's probably 2.5 hours. Would you say maybe a 3-hour drive?
3.5. Yeah. And on the topic of Martin Luther, his quote, it definitely 100% without even realizing it, I noticed that as soon as I chose a path the path cleared itself. Like you didn't have to know. And I was just like, as I was slowly manifesting things, I was like, how is this happening? Like, how is this happening?
Laura, you talk about that all the time. Like the path will start to clear itself
Yeah, and
out.
it's kind of crazy, like you said, as
Like,
soon as
look
you
at
kind of
started
take
as a
that first
nanny,
step.
and then like you know what I mean. Like it was all over the place.
Oh
Sorry,
yeah.
but
I mean, my career journey has been hilarious, and it's not like when I went to university, I was like, so I'm gonna go get this degree, then I'm gonna quit that, then I'm gonna go get this job, then I'm gonna quit that, and then I'm gonna go back to school. Like I didn't know any of those things, but it's kind of like when you have momentum and you just keep going, and you know that there's something. Like sometimes people, I feel, get too caught up on the specifics of a goal. Like I want to
Yeah.
be this by this time, and it's like, you know, I could have had the goal I wanted to be a basketball player. Chances of that would be very, very slim.
you can't tell by the screen, Vanessa. Laura's a little.
I'm 5 feet tall,
I was gonna say 4'11", but
but
you're,
yeah, so I probably wasn't gonna make it, right?
Yeah.
But maybe if I just said I wanted to be a professional athlete,
Yep.
you know, maybe had I expand my horizons
Yeah.
and opened up my mind, there other possibilities would have come in, right? And so for me, the goal was I just want to do something big for myself, bigger than what my family had done previously, whatever the goal is. And then you start to see how, oh, all of a sudden there's all these opportunities, not necessarily the ones that you would have thought or the direct path to get there, but all of a sudden things just unfold.
they
right
start
in
to
front of you.
unfold. The right look. I mean, the opportunity is everywhere. It's
Everywhere.
all around us as we speak. It's a
Yeah.
matter of getting in front of it, not waiting for it to come. It's already around us. You just need to use that reticular activator in your front part of your brain to tell the brain what it is that you want and get clear about it. So let's go back into this property. So it was a duplex. For anybody who's listening, a duplex has essentially a unit upstairs and a unit downstairs. And you were, was this turnkey? Was it something that you needed to renovations? I really kind of want to get into the micro and the weeds of this first one, because in my opinion, it's the toughest one to get started with, is
Yeah.
that first one. And then it becomes, in my opinion, again, the best drug in the world, because you get addicted to it. And for our listeners, sorry, you can't see the beautiful smile that Vanessa brings to the screen, but she lit up as I said. It becomes the most addicting drug, because it truly is, right?
Yeah.
So how much was this property? And tell me about, was it turnkey? Did you need to do renos and stuff?
Absolutely. So this was definitely an undervalued property, and it wasn't like, it didn't need like major repairs, but you could tell that it was going to be, there were going to be little projects, like, and along the way throughout these last 3 years, I have done little things to improve the property as I built up the funds. And so I originally bought this duplex I closed this deal September 2018. And I'll never forget, because I honestly believe the first deal is the hardest. And from there you soar, right? So I bought this duplex for $140,000 with, yeah. And it was 25% down. So I had to raise capital, obviously.
So, 1 sec, Vanessa. Why did you go 25% down? Did you have to because of the lending requirements? Because, as investors, you could do 20% down. Why did you go 25?
So because I was just starting, and with the job and the wage and the salary I was making at the time, so I was just a store manager. That's what the bank wanted to see from me. They wanted to see 25% down. At least that's what they told me. Now that I'm a little bit further into my experiences, I'm kind of taking myself back to my mindset back then when it came to real estate. There's so many other creative investment strategies you can use to close a deal. But for my first deal, I did raise 25. It could have been 20. It could have been 15. Whatever it was, I just knew what number I had to raise, and I worked towards finding that amount to close the deal.
So you raised $35,000 plus closing costs, $40,000, $45,000.
Yes, around there. And I also as soon as I knew I wanted to get into property, I started saving as much money as I could in order to pay for like the legal fees and all the hidden fees they don't really tell you about when you're about to close your first deal. And luckily for this deal, it was actually somebody that we met at a seminar. Really amazing guy. His name is Terry, and Terry actually passed away. And the reason what he wanted to do, and this is when I realized the power of not just networking for like immediate connections, but just building relationships with people that can potentially help you later. And Terry, we met him, and 5 to 10 years later, he found out he had cancer, and he wanted to sell off all his rental properties because none of his children were interested in the rental game. And that is when I realized not just the power of networking, but the power of unlisted deals that are not listed on the market. And so it just all came in place. Like it just all came in place.
Look, I mean, with the raising of, let's just call it $40,000, right? Most people would say, okay, how the heck am I gonna get $40,000? And it's all relative. I mean, you can tell me 400,000. It's the same thing. I'll tell you what I mean by that. Is that, again, going back to making sure that your what and your why is strong, the how will appear. Because now to raise $40,000, and Vanessa's going to tell us exactly how she raised it, but $40,000 could be me calling Laura and saying, Laura, can you lend me 40 grand? No, Jazz, I can't.
No.
Heck no, I'll give you 10. I'll give you 10. Great. Vanessa, can you give me 10? Steven, can you give me 10? Andre, can you give me 10? I just raised my $40,000. Or it's maybe two $20,000 raises. Like, the how is not as important. And so if it's $1 million, great. Okay, I got to raise $1 million. Is it 2 people with 500, one person with $1 million, 100 people with $10,000? Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's so many ways. Don't get caught up in the how. Just like Vanessa, she figured out, okay, what do I need to get? I got to get 40K. So now, how did you raise the 40 G's?
Okay, so after you put in the offer in the property and you know what day, like there's a bunch of different important dates to have, but the day that you need to make sure that you have all this money, I kind of just posted this on the wall, and every single night I kind of just thought about strategies and putting it out into the universe. And this happened for my first 3 deals, where before the closing date came, the money just came to me. And how I was able to do that was, obviously you have to take action, right? I started within my family and friends, and that was a good place for me to start, as well as some credit cards, only because I wasn't an experienced investor yet to be approaching people and asking them for their money without like having any experience. And so what I was doing was I got myself self-educated and knowledgeable about the fact, about what it means to borrow people's money and to give them a good rate of return. And so by taking their money, it's not just benefiting me and being able to close this property, but it's also benefiting them because their money is just sitting in their account doing nothing. It's just dead money. And the interest rate that I was able to give them, which obviously they gave me a good one because they're family, was going to be a lot better than it sitting in their account. And sometimes it's even better than what some of the stocks can give you. And the key to this is not only having a plan. And I thought about this, and I was doing so much research at the beginning and networking, learning from people, having a plan on how I'm going to get them their money back as soon as possible, within at least a year or 2 years. And so with my deal, or when I'm finding my properties and I'm analyzing the deal, I'm looking for cash flow. I'm looking to be able to pay for all the expenses of my property. And for me at the time, I was also being able to look for the fact that my cash flow can pay my investor their interest until I can refinance and pay them back in full.
Okay, so now you raised 40K. Was that 5 family members, 8 family members, 40 family members? How did you, off the top of your head, like you don't have to give me exact who the family members were, but from what you remember, that first property, how many family members and investors did you get involved?
So I was fortunate because I saved a lot of money, so I only had to approach 2 people. But if I did have to approach 10, 5, 15, I would have done it just to make sure I got my first deal.
Do you remember how much of your savings that you used out of like your personal savings?
Yes. So I used, I think, around maybe less than 5,000.
So you raised still 35,000 from family members.
Yeah.
And so you went and you did $17,500 from each family member. You used your own $5,000. So for anyone who's listening, who's 14, 15, and my niece who's 16 years old, I know you're listening, Simran. You know, she has a job at a grocery store right now, and it's the best thing in the world, because I ask her all the time, like, what are you doing with your money? Like, you should also have some fun with it and spend some of it. You're 16 years old. I want you to be excited to save money because then you can also spend it. And she's like, no, I'm just putting it all away. I'm putting it all away. I don't know what I'm gonna do. I mean, I listen to you, Chacha. That's what she calls me. Every week, every Wednesday, and majority of the time we're talking real estate. She's like, I probably want to buy my first property. So like, it's, I'm getting goosebumps as I'm talking because what is also coming into my head right now, what Laura mentioned earlier about getting younger women on. My niece has someone to look up to. So thank you for that.
She could
Vanessa.
probably relate to you then.
She'll,
to us old farts.
Well, exactly. Well, speak for yourself. Even though
What's up, Simran? You can do it.
Thanks, girl. I appreciate that. And so the importance of savings, and I'm trying to say that word really slowly because I know majority of younger people still don't know that. And a lot of older people don't know that habit of at least saving minimum 10% of your income. And it's very easy to do. I hope you can be a little bit more aggressive and get to 20 to 25%. Because look, if we're paying CRA, the government, or if you're listening in the States, IRA, like you're paying 35, 40%, you got to be able to get to that as quickly as possible because pay yourself first. So pay yourself first, minimum 10%, because even with a small somebody might say, oh my God, it's only $5,000. But look what Vanessa was able to do. She had her own $5,000. Now she's able to go to her family members and say, 17,500, uncle, 17,500 aunt, and at least they know you had some skin in the game. I don't care if it's only $5,000. Me as an investor and looking for joint venture partners at times, I want to make sure you got some skin in the game as well. And at that age, at that time, you would have been 23.
Yes, I was 23.
So as a 23-year-old, I'm like, okay, good job. Let's see some money in it, and for you to have $5,000, I love that.
Yeah, and I just want to clarify one thing. Are you the only one on title?
Yes, I was.
That's a great question, Laura.
Because a lot of people might hear this and say, "How at 23 are you even like able to get a mortgage?" And so that goes to show to your network, speaking with mortgage brokers, making sure you know what's required of you yourself, and that's why you had to put the 25% down.
Yeah.
But
it was my third lender. So the first two lenders said no. Yeah, it was an important
part.
Yeah, that was my simplified version, but there was obstacles that I had to overcome.
I love that. All the time. Well, we hear that all the time. 100%, right? I mean, and you said lenders. Was that the banks?
Period.
What were you saying, Laura?
Like people will say, I can't get the mortgage, and then they give up. Now, I'm like, you only spoke to one bank.
Now, Vanessa, was that when you said lenders? Was that actually the bank?
Yes, the bank.
Okay.
Yeah. So with my first deal, I obviously tried to learn the whole process, and I went to banks, and I had to try multiple different people, and not coming out of university, like a year or 2 years before that, being a broke student, I was still on my journey towards financial literacy. And that's why I just have to throw this in. I'm so happy Jazz mentioned paying yourself first and 10% down, because I've been trying to tell all my friends this, that I read a couple books like Rich Dad, Poor Dad and The Richest Man in Babylon, and the rules of money and building wealth are just so historical and so finite that you can start from zero, or you can start from 10,000, 100,000, and to build wealth, there's just simple rules. And one of them is paying yourself first and at 10%. And that really resonated with me because I wish I learned that sooner. And it's just a beautiful rule. And
yeah. Look, to your friends, my friends, Laura's friends, everyone who's listening, they'll do it when they see that you have a couple of more doors, and I can tell you that they're already looking and being like, damn, the same girl that was telling me to save money now has 28 doors.
Yeah, well, they might not even feel that way now, because they might say, well, I just bought a new car and look at the new shoes I just bought. Now I just got a new purse, and Vanessa doesn't have those things. Well, yeah, but Vanessa has something way better.
Well, she's creating long-term wealth, and she can buy the store, let alone buy the product. Forget the product.
It just doesn't look like that on the outside, right? So can't get fooled by those people who are walking around with all the new stuff.
100%.
Yeah, there's Vanessa humbly walking down the hallway with 28 properties.
What you see on Instagram is not necessarily always reality. I'm just gonna throw that out there. Let's get back into this property still, because I like, you're bringing so much value. You're doing fantastic. Appreciate your time, V. 2 doors. We had to go to 3 lenders to get the mortgage. The mortgage you're picking up is about $100,000. you're giving back a return for 2% to sorry, not 2%. You're giving return back to two investors. Do you remember what it was, how much it was like that you were offering to your investors?
So I did 10%.
Okay,
Yeah,
so amazing. So
amazing.
you were offering your investors a 10% return for how long? A 1-year term, 2-year term?
So 2 years.
Okay, perfect. So for anyone who's listening, I mean, in the bank, you're getting maybe 1%. In a stock or a mutual fund, you're probably looking at 5 to 6 to maybe 7% on average. That's what you're looking at, right? If you held a stock for 25, 30 years, your average return is going to be flirting around 7 to 8%. You were offering 10%. So for your family members who gave $17,500 in sorry, you said 2 years, right, Vanessa?
2 years, yeah.
Yes.
And was that 10% per annum or 10% for the 2 years? So 5% per annum.
So 10% annually.
10% annually. You're giving them back $1,700 approximately every year. That was going to be 5%, 8% more than them holding it in the bank. So for the joint venture financial partner, in this case, Vanessa's family members, it's almost a no-brainer as long as they believe in what A, they believe in Vanessa, and B, they believe in her plan for this property. Which was what? What was your thought process about this property?
So wanting to close my first deal, the one thing I really learned about was just the power of owning property, like building equity, building wealth, and just understanding what that even means. Like as a young graduate who was just working as a store manager, I didn't even understand how properties grew equity. I'm like, what do you mean by equity? And like I was just thinking about it. I'm like, so you're saying that if I'm paying $2,000 for a mortgage every month for 1 year, that's 24,000, and in 2 years that's 48,000, etc. And that's my money that I can access to refinance, to leverage, to close more deals. It was like this light bulb where it's like, wow, a lot of young people, and it's a simple concept, but a lot of young people don't even realize how properties build wealth and equity. And so within, like right now, with my very first duplex, I actually, so now that the market is really hot, I decided to refinance it, and I bought it at 140, and now it's valued at 270.
Wow.
So
And did you do any renos to that? Just so we know.
Oh yes, I had to redo the roof,
Okay.
and I also fixed up like little things in the property, like new paint jobs. Like I think in one unit I had to do something with the flooring, and so I don't do any of this. I delegate it all. I pay a property management team to do it, and like a handyman. And because I was working full time, I didn't touch any of the cash flow my property was making. So my business account was just kind of building its cash flow slowly while I used the money that I was working for and grinding for to fund my personal expenses. And what Laura said, I didn't really care about like purses and like designer stuff. Like it really didn't mean anything to me. So
I love that.
Yeah.
And like in terms of the roof and I called it little miscellaneous stuff, the painting, you probably changed some
Yeah.
hardware. What are we talking? Maybe $10,000 in total, would you say? Less, more?
So I paid a little under 7,000 for my roof.
Okay, perfect.
And where did that money come from?
So that money was already in my account. So when you close your first deal, or when you close your first rental deal, automatically you get tenants first and last payments, and then the cash flow every month. At that time, 3 years ago, when the market wasn't as hot as it was now, I was able to get that property at like, I think it was almost a 9% cap rate, and it was cash flowing, and it was a really great deal. And even for the bank, they valued it more than how much I was buying it at. So I got really lucky. Even like raising the money with my family and stuff like that, I know that you have to get them to trust you and stuff like that. And I know that not all individuals know how to pitch it to their family members, or their family members not. But there's always a way. That's the thing. I feel like it's not just luck. I also did work very, very hard in educating myself, but there is this I feel like in the real estate world, you do get this splash of just luck, and that's just through your why and through manifesting
You
it
know
and
what,
stuff like
Vanessa?
that.
Like I think in life you need it. For anyone to say, like, I get the question a lot, like, how do you become successful? When did that hit for you? And it's like, I can't tell you is, December 9th.
Yeah, and this was the decision I made that
And
made
this
it all
happened.
happen.
It's an
Yeah.
accumulation of so many failures and little successes along the way that helped us get to where we are right now. And a lot of luck, a lot of luck. I was, Elto, part of our, I call her Elto, Vanessa, just so you know. And sometimes I just call her Toe. She called our company to join our team, and I happened to pick up the phone. Luck. You could call that luck, because if it could have been someone else.
I didn't even want to work here.
Well, exactly, right?
I was just using this
But
as
then
like a
she saw
test
my
interview.
beautiful good looks, and she said, "Well, I got to be around Jazz,
Oh,
right?"
Jazz is the ultimate salesperson.
Yeah,
He sold me.
and Steven, who joined like my team, Luke, my little 20-year-old, now becoming this insane, amazing sales and service specialist on our team. He came and he called, and I normally would not pick up the phone. This was about a year and a half ago, and he says to me, "You need to meet me." And I said, "No, that's not going to happen, because I'm not looking for a newer agent." He's like, "You're making a huge mistake." At 19 years old, this little kid is telling me, you know what I mean? I got socks older than 19, I think. And so I'm listening, and I'm like, okay, you got to come in, kid, because now you got a lot of balls. Kid ain't over you. Luck. I mean, he's an amazing, amazing person, right? So, I mean, yes, I understand that. I think what you're trying to say, don't let me put words in your mouth, but I think in terms of your family members and everything, I think you're blessed. You're just blessed to have people in your life that you're calling upon that are answering your calls, right? And so, in terms of luck, we all need it. It was huge, obviously a huge part of your life as well. And anyone who's successful will always tell you there was definitely components in their journey that they can peg to being lucky for sure. Now, back to this property again. So now you're refinancing it at 200, values 270,000. Did you refinance this property at any other point, or is this the first refi you're doing with this property, B?
Oh, this is my very first refinance.
I love it. Okay, awesome. So we're gonna refinance this. You're gonna get 80% loan to value on this. What's your mortgage approximately left on it right now, off the top of your head?
So the mortgage approximately left on it, I think that when I refinanced it, there was about let me tell you
It's
right
okay.
now.
Yeah. No, take your time. Don't worry, because I want to walk people through this. Like, she bought this property for 140,000, put in approximately, call it $12,000 in renovations over the 3-year period. It's worth 270,000. She's gonna go to a lender and say, can I please refinance this? They're gonna say, no problem. We're gonna give you 80% loan to value. So it's 216,000 is what 80% of the 270 is, minus whatever is left on her mortgage. Again, approximately. I'm thinking in 3 years, you're probably flirting around $85,000 around there, maybe 80,000. Well, actually, 3 years, you're probably closer to 75,000 left on your mortgage. It's amazing that in the last 3 years, the market has done what it's done, but this will always happen. And some people are like, well,
yeah, she got lucky, obviously, given the time, because a lot of people are saying, well, during COVID, my property might have gone down in value. Perhaps if you purchased in Toronto,
like a
example,
condo.
like a condo,
Yeah.
then maybe your value did go down. But we always say values go up and down, upwards. You just got to be able to hold it. And I think her intention was always to continue holding it. She didn't have to for very long before she was able to refi. Yeah. She got lucky. Maybe the next property, not as lucky. But as long as you go in with the intention of holding it, she's not forced to sell at any specific time period, right?
I just want to let you know, Andre, you can DM her as well and talk to her through DM in case we need to bring her on. In terms of what you're saying, Laura, 100%, right? Like, the market, obviously, she can take advantage of it. her mindset was always to buy and hold, and we're gonna get into once we bring her back on.
Well, not 26. I mean,
Well,
she's got a lot of time to hold on to that.
well, she has a lot of time. Oh, I mean, the longer she holds on to it, the more that she
Yeah.
can use it.
You
as
think
well.
what's going to happen by the time she's 30? with
Well,
this property?
well, I think on average you can easily say every 10 years that prices are gonna double.
This is going to legitimately be a teller, a bank teller.
A
For her,
hun-
you know what
an
I mean? She's
ATM.
going to go and she's going to take money out.
Yeah.
And then a couple years later, she's going to go and she's going to refinance and take money out
Well,
again.
look, we're looking at approximately $140,000 that she's gonna be able to pull out of this property. What can she do with the $140,000? You know, she can easily look at two properties because she's comfortable with investing out further. So, I mean, from that perspective, she's gonna be able to build out her portfolio a lot quicker. I loved what she said about, you know, I keep on going back to it because she is very positive by nature. I think we can tell
Yeah.
that, and I think our listeners can tell as well. But she also put in the work.
Well, I think what you can really tell is just how educated she is. I mean, I've talked to a lot of 26-year-olds and they don't sound like her.
And confident.
Confident.
You know, and that comes from actually, in my opinion anyways, it comes from putting in the work. Like what do I mean by putting in the work? Not just working at
Yeah.
as a store manager where she is, but
Yeah,
actually,
but she was working her job,
Yeah.
saving all of her money.
Yeah.
She knew she had to speak with more than one bank to get a mortgage. She understood
her
what
3.
cap rates are.
Yeah.
She knows how to find tenants. She knew going into it what were the renovations she was going to have to do. She knew how to pitch to her family. Pitching to your family is not easy. Sometimes
Actually,
it's easier pitching
when
to
we
strangers.
bring her back on, I try to remember that because I want to make
Yeah,
sure.
like I want to know
how did she
specifically
pitch?
what did you say?
Yeah.
Because
What did she say
family
back
is
then, and how's
tough.
it different now?
Yeah.
Like 3 years down the road, how she changed her pitch, especially when it's family members as well. Right?
Yeah, like I don't feel like my family's forking over any money to me anytime soon. You know what I mean? I'd rather go to strangers, right?
But
because
look,
they don't
I mean,
know
you
your
say
story.
that as a joke, right? You say that as a joke, but now that you have the experience of actually, so first and foremost, you help, you know, close to 200 of our clients every single year, walk them through the pre-construction process. Okay. Second, because you've done it yourself, right?
Well, that's just
That-
it. Because I've done it already.
Carl, shout out to Carl again. He's getting a lot of shout outs on this podcast lately, but shout out
He
to Carl
deserves it.
because he was like, hey, I'll look into this. Tell me a little bit more about that. And that's what really happens, guys. Like, it happens to me at cocktail parties. It happens to me when my buddies come over for poker night. Like, hey, Jess, can you tell me a little bit about investing in this type of strategy? Can you tell me what your client, like, that just naturally will happen, but it will only happen on a regular basis if you actually do it yourself.
Well, that's what was very impressive here because she did all the research, but it's not like she had any proof that, like, guys, I've done this once and this is what I made on
Yeah.
it. So there is a bit of blind faith. And I want to know, like, what kind of did they sign agreements, like
joint venture agreements.
joint
and stuff
venture
like
agreements on the back
How
end?
we
Like,
doing, Stephen?
how did that all
Sorry.
work?
Oh, so she just okay, awesome. For our viewers, we've been obviously speaking with Vanessa. Met her on Clubhouse not too long ago. Good idea of getting Vanessa's story out.
100%. I'm fascinated.
Right?
with Vanessa.
Well, I love how you're saying, let's make sure we get this question out, because I'm very curious as well as how she now, because we're only at 2 doors. So, I mean, not that we're going to talk about every single property. You guys can always go check her out.
Yeah, and I think to your point, you said earlier that the first property is the big one because
Yeah.
that's where all the hurdles are, right? That's well, not necessarily all the hurdles, but the mindset hurdle is
It's
big
not-
enough, right?
Took
from
the words
there.
out of my mouth. It's more of a mental thing. That's what I've noticed. I mean, obviously, getting over how to get the
And then all this
financing.
education she needed.
For
Now
sure.
she knows how this works. So for her to do it again, it's kind of become like a little assembly line. She's going to run into obviously more difficulties in the future because all of a sudden she's not going to be able to be the one that's on title. She's
Right.
going to have to find somebody else to get the
Yep.
mortgage, right?
But
Won't be able to be her. So she'll go through different struggles
Yeah.
and different hurdles and obstacles. But the first one is the one where it's like, as long as she's gotten to the point where like, I know what my goal is, and now it's going to come to me. She's going to keep finding ways to make it happen.
Well, and that's exactly what I was about to say, that she, no matter what, so she's going to have times where it's going to be very tough for her to get financing right now in real estate once she gets over 6-7 doors. But that doesn't mean that she's not going to figure it out. Not this girl.
Like when you say doors, you mean properties.
Properties, I
Yeah, 'cause
apologize.
she's at 28 doors.
She's
but
at
that's
28 doors. I don't know how many properties that is.
Yeah.
We're gonna find
Yeah.
out. Because look, I have a feeling it's gonna be more than a handful. Because I mean, her first one was a duplex. She sounds like she's very comfortable with duplexes. Mind you, she also said that her goal was always to get into multifamily. When most people speak about multifam, that generally means that you're looking at 5 doors and above.
Yeah.
What's up, V? You're back. Can you hear us?
I can hear you guys. I'm so sorry. My laptop
It's all
was
good.
dying.
Are you crazy? I told you. Look, I mean, Laura loves just continuously talking and talking and talking. So
Right,
she
me.
hasn't
That's me.
shut up this whole time since you've been gone. So we definitely were excited to get you back and back onto to the podcast here. So we were actually just talking off air. Well, actually, we weren't off air. You weren't with us, but we were speaking about a couple of things. And Laura, you wanted to make sure that we got to that. So go. You start.
Yeah,
first.
I was very interested in knowing if you did like a joint venture agreement with your family members on the back end for this first property, or was it just like we trust you? That was it. Handshake.
Oh, so for the very first deal, it wasn't a joint venture agreement. A lot of my family members that I borrowed like money from didn't necessarily understand like what I was trying to do with the money. I had to kind of slowly explain to them what they would be gaining in the process of us working together. So I guess it's sort of like a partnership, but I solely owned the property. And
What
I
was
think
the pitch? What was the pitch, girl? Because we were talking about that as well. What was the pitch to those first few family members? And if you can remember, how many no's did you hear? Because I think that's important for people to understand that. Yeah, maybe it was like it was 2 for 2. You went to 2 family members, got 17,500, got 17,500. But we also want to know what your pitch was back then, and then we'll talk about kind of what your pitches evolved into now.
yeah. So back then, as I was still learning, I just again, I was very, very nervous, and I decided to just take the leap and like see what would happen. And so I called up someone and I was like, "Hi, so I have this really, really, really incredible deal. And in order for me to fund this deal, it's really important to me that it's really important to me that I'm able to raise the capital. And so I have a proposition for you. Like, because I'm not able to raise this capital and you do have the funds, I would love it if you'd be able to lend me this, but I would not take your money without giving you the best rate of return. And your money is going to be sitting in your account doing nothing anyways. And not only will I give you the best rate of return, but I'm going to pay you back your money in full within 2 years." So I kind of just made it as simple as possible.
So it was paid in full in 2 years plus the interest, or did you give them like monthly installments as well, or was it all paid up in 2 years with interest?
So I paid the interest monthly. So they were getting the interest monthly, and then after I refinanced, I was able to pay them back in full. So I think you were asking me a question before I got off, and about my refinancing process. So I had bought the property at 140, and by the time as of the time I refinanced, it was the last month, I had paid down the mortgage to about 90, like 99. So there was 40% equity that was in the property. And usually, for anyone that doesn't know this, when you're going to refinance, especially if you're going to like a bank, like an A bank, like TD, they want to see that you at the very minimum have at least 20% equity in that property before you even decide to refinance. And so I did it at 80%. I did 80% at the 270, plus obviously all the land, the fees and the taxes and stuff like that. So I was left with around 100, a little under 110,000, around there.
So how nice is that? And we were talking about this when you were just charging up your computer. We were talking about the fact that now at $110,000, as long as you can hold on to this property, you can go back to this ATM. Laura called it the bank teller. I call it ATM. Same thing. And you can continuously pull this money out, not necessarily every 3 years. Hopefully you can, knock on wood, but at least every 5 years, you're going to be able to pull out this money. Right. And so, And for all of our Canadian listeners, it's tax free. That $110,000 that dropped into her account and it went into her checking, savings, or other account is tax free. It's
Oh my goodness.
It's so
It
good.
is
right.
like, as a young person, sorry, go ahead, Laura.
I was just saying it's so good. It gets me super excited. Like I'm excited for you. I'm like, oh my god,
It's one of the only legal
$110,000.
it's one of the only legal ways not to pay taxes, and so
Yeah,
amazing.
it is like, it was honestly like the whole experience of going through my refinancing for the first time was like, it was just so powerful because up until that point I never really seen like, I understood all my properties like building equity and stuff, but I've never really taken from them. And I'm a very like, I don't really touch the money that much. I just buy what I need when I need it, or if I want to take a vacation, sure. And so to see those like six figures, it was like, wow, like that is how powerful property is. Not only are you building equity and wealth, but you have tax advantages. You know, tax advantages, there's cash flow, you can refinance it again. Like it's just crazy. And the best part that people asked me was, and I don't know if this is a little bit too deep for our conversation, was like, Vanessa, like, how are you able to get like financing for all these properties, blah, 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 blah. Are you buying it under your name? And what I had to explain with them, specifically for like asset protection, is when you're doing rental properties, you have to open up a corporation. And so all of that debt or business debt that you accumulated is not actually attached to your personal name, it's attached to your business. And that was a really important thing that a lot of my peers didn't really understand. They're like, why would you refinance? Your credit's going to be bad and this and that. And they didn't really understand that it was a separate entity. And so owning property is just a powerful thing. And once people can see it, like it's just infinite opportunities.
Well, I mean, you're taking it to the next level, talking about that. Let's, I don't need you to necessarily speak about how you got right up to 28 doors, like every single door, but we're at 2 doors from your first property. Kind of give us the high level of what were the next set of properties that you got. Did you go duplexes all the way? What did you switch to multifams? What happened? And what did you do?
Okay, so my next deal I closed in October. So it was a month after I closed a fourplex. And yeah, so it was just happening. And so a month after I was able to close a fourplex, and so after I closed my first deal, I had no access to any more funds through like my family and friends, or there was a lot of people who did say no, and that's going to happen. So after I was moving on to my next deal, I'm like, I spent so much time just analyzing listings. And then the same guy who sold me the duplex was like, I want to sell you my fourplex. And I'm like, oh my gosh, yes. And I analyzed the deals. The numbers looked beautiful. There was cash flow, great debt coverage ratio, great cash on cash return, everything. I'm like, how am I going to fund this deal? And so while I was trying to ask around, getting all these no's, Tara Riley actually allowed me to purchase this deal because I had built a good relationship with him and his family, like in the background and stuff like that. He actually allowed me to get this deal for no money down.
Wow. So
yeah.
So it was with no money down, and how did was he giving you the mortgage, or did you get like a vendor take back mortgage, seller take back mortgage, or did you have to go get financing yourself?
So we did this thing. It was called like a wrap around the mortgage, where he allowed me to own the property and pretty much all the expenses that were involved in the property, as well as all of the income that was made. I would take over everything, like in like a legal structure. Our lawyer helped put it all together. And within a year, I would get the mortgage from the bank.
Okay. And so now that happened back in 2018. So now let's just quickly fast forward to 2019. You went to the bank, showed them the structure, and then you were able to get, like, how did you get the financing for that property at that time?
So again, I said I got a no from the original bank that actually helped me fund the duplex, which was TD. And so I went to another bank, Desjardins Bank, and spoke to a mortgage broker, and I was able to get the mortgage loan for that as well. So,
Now, did you have to put anything down at that time, or because like they saw the rental income and that they base the getting the mortgage, base the financing on the rental income.
So I didn't have to put anything down. No.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So that was a very unique deal that it's almost like unheard of.
Speaks
But
to
Tara,
relationship building. Speaks to
Yeah.
relation.
yeah,
You said it earlier, right? It speaks to relationship building. You don't know when something like that is going to come up, but it can only come up if you plant seeds and build relationships. What was the
yes.
third property? Because now we're at 6, and so we're gonna go back to middle school, well, to elementary school, and start counting.
28 minus 6.
Yeah,
means
yeah,
we have
yeah. So,
22 to go.
what was the next properties, and then let's get ourselves up to 28.
Okay. So my next deal was an eightplex. And my eightplex that I closed there was two. It was a partnership deal between two people, and one of the partners, they just could not work together. They just could not work together, and so they wanted out, and they wanted to be paid out. And so I hopped in and decided, you know what, I want to close this eightplex. There's no way I'm going to be able to close an eightplex deal by myself, and so I will take 50% partnership. Like, hell yeah, I'll do it. And so
Yeah.
I had to pay out their part of the
Got it.
eightplex deal,
Okay.
and then I assumed 50% partnership. And to pay out that deal, somebody that I knew, they actually recently got pre-approved. They have amazing credit, and they got pre-approved for like a $50,000 line of credit. Like, they just
Okay.
got pre-approved for it, and they don't know what to do with it. They didn't know what to do with it. And so from my first deal, where I learned how to get money from friends and family, like one person that I networked with, I asked them if they would let me take the line of credit, and I would give them a rate of return.
Nice.
And that's
And
how
then
I funded my partnership.
I love it. I love it. Did you offer that person 10% as well?
11.
11. Nice. Why 11? Just to give them an extra percent based on, like, what was their rate? What were they paying on that line of credit? Was that like 3%, 4%, 5%? Do you even know?
Yeah, it was like, I think the pre-approved line of credit they had was around like under 4%. It was under
Nice.
4%. And I pitched I think I was going to offer them 10%, but they were hesitant and they didn't really understand. And the date was coming, and I'm like, you know what? How about this? Because I really want you to understand the value of just like private equity and lending people money, I will give you 11%. It was kind of just like it just came out, and it just happened. So
For anybody who's listening or watching right now, understand that it from the investor's perspective, if you, as the joint venture partner who's pitching, if you can explain it and say, hey, Laura, look, you got the $50,000, you're paying 4% on it, I'm going to give you 11. Quick math tells me you're going to earn 7% on your money, and all you're doing is lending me the money. It's very, very passive. Now, to Laura's question earlier, did you need to put this person on title? What did you do? Like, are you putting some type of trust agreement in the back end with the lawyers? How are you protecting the investor? I know how you're protected. You're going on title. You're good. But how have you been protecting the investor in the back end?
So to protect the investor in the back end, there is it's just legal paperwork. You get a lawyer and you come up with this agreement with what it means to invest money. And obviously that means that if by any chance I'm unable to pay them back, and now that I have assets, I can put something, it's like, if I can't pay you back, then you can have this part of my deal. Like,
collateral.
it's your
Yeah, me as somebody as a money partner, I know you got there's collateral involved, right, Laura?
Yeah, maybe your family might have been like, we know you're good for it.
Yeah, we know where you live.
Fine, we're helping you out to get your
feet wet.
But like, obviously, people that you've never met are probably not like, yeah, sure, I'll just take your word for it.
Exactly, and so I love it, and I love the fact that you didn't overthink it in terms of, because I hear it a lot with my clients, right? I mean, it's, well, how are we going to get all this done? And there's so much work involved. It's a trust agreement. The lawyers will write it up. You pay the lawyers a fee. They do that kind of stuff in their sleep. You can go back and forth until the cows come home in terms of making sure that the agreement's written to protect all parties. But that's the lawyer's job. You don't need to sit there and try to understand all the ins and outs. Get your lawyer, make sure that the investor has their own lawyer, so everyone has independent legal advice. And
Yes.
getting a trust agreement there's not a lot of work involved. We're at 14 doors. What was next in your portfolio, V?
Yeah. So before I move on to the next one, I just want to say how you explain the whole pitching it to someone that you want to use it. It's almost like you kind of have to have the confidence to allow them to believe that it's almost a no-brainer. Not
Yeah.
only are they just lending you the money, you're literally making them money. So they're benefiting off of that that transaction as well. And so my next deal, so this is the crazy part because I went from 2 and I doubled to 4 and then I doubled to 8. And so my next deal, which was my 4th deal, I closed. Well, I'm in the process. This is what well, it's pretty much all already closed, but it's a 14
Like,
unit deal. And
love
it's a 14 unit deal, but it's in 3 buildings, like 3 parts. So it's
Got
basically a
it.
6-plex, a 4-plex, and a 4-plex. And the crazy part is I was able to find this in such a hot, like almost impossible market. But for the last like 3 or 4 months, I was looking at deals every day for at least 30
Sorry,
minutes.
these are all in Sudbury? All your
So,
properties?
so the 14 that I closed was Garson. So it was 5 minutes away from Sudbury. It's a small town. The lady that manages our property, Jada, she's our property manager. She grew up in Garson, Ontario, and she gave me a lot of feedback of how that neighborhood does and how the people there like to stay there. There's a lot of renters, they don't really feel the need to like buy homes, or they don't have the best credit to buy homes. And so the vacancy rate is very, very, very low. So yeah, so basically in my portfolio so far of my 28 units, just getting started and understanding the power and the negotiations and everything that's involved, I do want to jump into really great emerging markets because I know how important location is. But for me, being someone that started and building the 28 within this 3 years, like location was not supposed to be something that was the most important thing to me, as long as the deal made sense. So analyzing the deal and finding a good deal was the most important thing. It wasn't like, oh, I had to buy a deal in Toronto because appreciation is the best here. I kind of had to let go of what the most perfect deal would look at and see the potential in undervalued properties in neighborhoods that maybe weren't appreciating as fast, but they were still building equity.
Well, I love that you weren't stuck to the primary or secondary units. You were willing to go out to the tertiary units and see tertiary areas and say, look, I'm okay to invest where the returns are best. I said it earlier, but I really hope this is ringing true for people, because we have listeners in Vancouver and Saskatchewan and Alberta, all across the country, that would say, I don't want to invest in Toronto, or I would love to invest in Toronto, but it's too far away. But if the returns are better, and this is not a conversation about are returns better in Toronto than Vancouver or whatever, it's just that invest where the returns are best, because most of the time, unless you're very handy and you can fix electrical issues and plumbing issues and roofing, you're going to get someone else involved. Like all these shelves behind me, my listeners know, Laura put them up. It's not, I'm not, that's not what I'm good at. I suck at any of that kind of stuff. I'm going to get a property manager involved for all my units. I mean, I have a unit right now, as we speak, in downtown Toronto, which is less than a 15-minute drive.
Still doesn't manage.
And I still don't manage that thing. One of my agents manage it. Why? Why am I wasting time there? You want to be someone like V, who's like, I spent days upon days looking for properties. That's your job. Look for the properties, find the property. Even that you can get help with. And now that V and I are getting connected, and we're going to find easier ways of doing that, hopefully. But your job is to find, in this situation, why I think you've succeeded so quickly and you've done so well, V, is because you focused your time around, how am I going to pitch my investors? You really are starting to nail down your pitch. I mean, and to do 28 units and 4 doors, I don't care if you bought one building that had 28 doors. You took action. For you to do it 4 times, that is amazing. And kudos and congratulations to you once again.
Definitely. And I do want to sort of circle back to the beginning of our podcast discussion today, where we said A lot of these investor groups, everyone's there to share tips and tricks and share their stories to help people not make the same mistake. So, Vanessa, I guess I'm asking you, what was your biggest, I'm going to call it fail forward experience? I.e., what's the biggest mistake you made along this journey, and how can you pass on that information to our listeners and watchers?
So I would say that one of my biggest failures, and I feel like what has even stopped me from not getting to even closing more deals, was breaking through the barrier of, and that's how I was able to get this 14 unit deal, was breaking through the barrier of just investing emotionally. So wanting to be in the hot cities, wanting a building that looked beautiful, wanting a building that looked amazing. And those were the deals where, like, not all my offers sticked, right? There were offers that failed. There were people that said no. And there were buildings that I wanted in hot markets that just weren't, I just was not able to close. And so just understanding what makes a really great deal and what's going to get you your best rate of return, and not being all caught up in all the details of the location and how it looks. Obviously, there's mandatory inspections and you want a building that's not going to cost you in the long term, but just, yeah, being able to recognize a good deal, because there was bad deals that I tried to close at, and thankfully it never worked out, because of the emotional aspect of thinking that I want a building that looks good, or I want a building in a hot area. And now I'm in a position where if I wanted to close a building in an area like that, I've built my portfolio enough to have access to the equity to be in these hot emerging markets. And so, yeah, there was definitely a lot of obstacles along the way, and a lot of personal adversities that I had to get through, in order to just conquer the fear of owning property. And just now being able to understand that if I want to scale, I need to put a team into place. And kind of what Jazz also mentioned, creating multiple pipelines for deals to come to me instead of spending, hours on listing pages, and listing deals weren't even my best deals, right? So
Yeah.
I know that was a mouthful. I'm not sure if I answered that question correctly.
That's incredible. I love it. I think there's lots of meat in this entire discussion that we've had today for anyone who's sitting on the sidelines, or they've bought one property and they're kind of like, I don't know if I can get to the next, or they've met with a mortgage broker who said no, or a lender who said no. You've essentially gone through all of these things in a very short period of time, and you're still going, right? So I think that's the biggest lesson for everyone.
I did have, and 100%, Lord. Quick question for you, V, before I know how much time we spent, and I hear a little one in the back, just so everyone knows.
That's my daughter.
Yeah, V did that, has been doing all this while being a full-time mom as well. And so congratulations on that. And it's so cool because
Thank you so much.
I have a feeling what dad did for you, you'll do for her. So that's awesome. And you got all this knowledge. In terms of the refi that you're just finishing, that you just finished, are you going to be using that for the 14plex, or are you stretching that out to other properties now?
So I paid off my original investor, and I'm using this to, like, basically when you refinance, at least for the people who don't know yet, you can use that to leverage yourself to buy other properties. And so I am using that fully to reinvest it completely into this property. And now I'm also working with two other people. So it's a joint venture, 3 equity partners, and the 3 of us will be on title, because you have to grow with people around you. You can't do it yourself.
Well, I love what you said, right? Because you could go buy Prada bags, you could go buy a new car, but you're deciding to reinvest. You could go to Vegas, you can go to Niagara Falls and put it on black or red, but you're deciding to put it back into properties, and that's how you're going to create even more wealth, generational wealth. And I was very excited to have you on, but I'm even more excited for your future. Not only what we might be able to do together, but really more importantly, what I think you're going to be able to bring to so many men and women, young and old, minorities, majorities, because of your passion, because of your knowledge and experience now. And so I'm not sure if you know this yet, But you are an amazing, amazing inspiration to so many already. And I just can't wait till the world gets to hear and see your uniqueness.
Oh my goodness. Thank you guys so much for having me. This has actually been the first time where like people were asking me questions on like how I was able to close certain deals and how to explain it. And so this was a really good experience for me to even just put my thoughts together and put it out there. And I know that I'm going to get better every time. So thank you guys so much for this platform and the way that you share information with other people. Like it's incredible. And I know that you guys spent a lot of time trying to dig into my thoughts and my experiences, but I've heard you both speak on Clubhouse and you have a lot of value to offer. And I'm so excited to jump deeper into your platforms and really learn from you guys. So thank you so much for having me.
Wow.
You're very welcome. And I just want to say on behalf of the ladies out there, you're doing us very proud. So kudos to you.
Thank you so much, guys.
It was a blast having you. Thanks again, V.
Okay. Have a great day, guys. Bye. Wait, actually, before I go, do you guys want to see my daughter?
Yes, we would love to.
Let me see here.
What a gem. You found a gem.
I think so.
Aw.
She woke up from a nap, so.
Oh, she's been asking. Oh,
There she is. Look at that,
that
hair.
hair.
Hi.
What's her name?
Her name is Naya Jane.
Naya Jane. NYA or N?
It's Niyah.
Oh wow, I love
Naya.
that spelling. What a and how old is she now?
She's 7 months.
Oh wow, awesome, amazing. I can. Oh, look at her. She's like, who are these people talking to me? Look at those cheeks. Look at
Hi.
those cheeks.
She's actually a very happy baby. She smiles more than me, but she just woke up from a nap. So, hi, baby.
Yeah.
Well, I believe I believed everything you said up until then because that smile of yours is definitely contagious. It's the virus that we like to see. So thank you again. And Naya, you have a beautiful day with mommy now. And sorry for taking her away for over an hour.
Say bye.
Bye.
Thanks again, V. I'll talk to you on Instagram soon. Okay, hon. Thanks.